All right, welcome back to Deconstructing DJG. I am DJG, and we are here with another reaction to Paul and Morgan 24 Hours With. This time it is with Josh Benson, who is It's Church Chad. And I think they really have keyed into something with this series that I didn't really think about before. But nobody's tuning in to see them. We know what they think about these things. We know what their side is. We are only curious to see how these other people look at Paul and Morgan on camera and are like, are you fucking serious?
Exactly. We're going to perform a test on you to see how well you handle these terrible people.
MK Ultra. It's PM Ultra.
Yes.
I realized he's not on TikTok, which is shocking.
Oh, interesting.
Shocking to me. Unless, of course, he uses a screen name other than Church Chad. But yeah, I was like, why? Why are you not on TikTok, bro?
Right? Seriously.
Your content is built for TikTok.
I was watching a bunch of his videos last night, and man, a few of them I'm dying because it's so real. When he acts out like how people are at the church and conversations that they have. Oh my God. It's like, yes, this is hilarious, but also it's not really an exaggeration.
No.
A lot of times.
Not at all. That's the whole thing. He does not have to exaggerate one little bit. The ones where he's like, playing the youth pastor or that guy in church that, is trying to ask you out in the Christian way. No, those are all 100%. They all remind me so much of high school. And like the dating part, I didn't do dating in high school. But when I got to college, that's exactly what happened. My dude.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can very much appreciate a lot of his art that he is putting out. And I thought it was really funny that Paul and Morgan would do that because I didn't even really clock him as a Christian. I've been seeing It's Church Chad videos for forever. And I never thought that he was an actual Christian. I heard about this, 24 Hours With, and I went to his page and I'm realizing, call is coming from inside the house.
Yeah. It kind of feels like another Dave situation almost.
Yes. So Paul called us all freaks and weasels and bottom feeders for watching things on YouTube. And so now anytime I am posting on Funny Snark or something about I watch such and such, I always make sure to add, yes, Paul, I'm a freaky weasel.
Yes, Paul. It's like a term of endearment now. Like we've accepted it. Yes. Like we do have a relationship with you whether you like it or not, Paul.
Correct.
Like whenever Paul and Morgan are making a point, it's like it's just coming from the same packaged message that we all got before, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's like it's been cool to see how the different people react to that. Like we all have our own personal Paul and Morgans.
Oh, 100%. That is an excellent point because back when I was still in contact regularly with my family, we had to institute a blacklist of topics that we did not approach because things like abortion, gay marriage, guns, they had these packaged talking points, and I would have my own thoughts about that. And some of it, especially when I was in my 20s, was me kind of parroting back progressives that I had listened to. It made the conversations just really, really difficult because we were coming from such extreme sides, and even as I got older into my 30s, it was so hard to not just completely lose my patience with them.
I think that's good. Yeah.
It is. It's really good, especially if everyone actually respects the blacklist.
I feel like my family has a version of that where they know that they can put out an invitation like, hey, you guys are welcome to come to this or that. Not like an invitation to have a conversation about
Right.
those things anymore.
All right. So with that said, let's hop into Paul and Morgan.
We had the opportunity to spend the day with Josh Benson from Outchadding. Huge shout out to Josh and Sydney for being down to film episode 3 while being 1 month into living with their new baby girl.
We've had online disagreements in the past. I may or may not have wanted to punch Josh in the face. So the question now is, can we squash our beef face to face?
Grab the fire extinguisher because this beef is sizzling.
Seriously, this beef is sizzling. He's one of those people who doesn't really understand a lot of turns of phrase, and so he does them wrong. I find that incredibly amusing.
I grew up in a town of like 5,000 people. East Texas, very not diverse city.
It's not very diverse. Would you consider it one of the racist towns of America?
Would I consider it like most racist? No. But that's like part of my upbringing is like there's so many white people. The line between being a Republican and being Christian was super blurred. They never said anything, whatever, but it was like sometimes they would kind of say something under the radar and you're like, oh, that sounds interesting. Then Trump runs and like all these guys and women that I looked up to in our church, all of a sudden just kind of start saying the quiet part out loud. Like, y'all are kind of racist and I don't really want to be a part of this. We had a guy in our town black guy, he's like a youth pastor in San Antonio now. Best dude ever. And Trump starts running and he kind of voices concern about that. And then the town that like cherished him so much, like, we love this guy. All of a sudden they're like, you're not welcome at my house anymore. I don't know if you would call it like Reformation or like deconstruction or whatever. But around that time, I really kind of looked in the mirror and was like, what have I been taught growing up, like church-wise, that was just like veiled Republicanism?
Wow. That is such a beautiful point because that's exactly something that hit me. It wasn't during the Trump thing because I started deconstructing like way, way, way before that because I'm like a decade and a half older than Josh Benson. But there were, election cycles and stuff. Prop 8, things like that came up in the 2000s where it became very apparent to me that what I was raised with in my family and in most of the churches that I had gone to was a very thinly veiled Republicanism with this like costume of Christianity over it. I feel like I had been shouting that from the rooftops since the mid 2000s and nobody was listening to me. They were like, "Oh, why do you hate Christians so much?" And I'm like, "I don't."
Right. I'm surprised that he opened up with this so quickly
Right?
into the video. It's like, okay, let's go here. I don't like the fact that he said all that and then we just cut to them going and walking right here. We don't get a response for that.
There's no conversation. There's just
no
his statement.
Yeah. And there really is no good defense for that. He's sitting there saying, I'm realizing that people around me are being racist and I don't want to have anything to do with it. And then we're cutting to, we're on a walk now. Like, did you watch the video where I wanted to punch you in the face? They did keep it in, and he
That's
made a
true.
lot of good points.
Well, I think the problem was just like with Dave and Bethany, if they had cut out things like that, there wouldn't have been much left to make a video out of. So they kind of had to, because they had already announced that they were going to be doing a video with him. So here is as a technical issue, when you are broadcasting a new series about something, you need to have stuff already completed. And then when you are, saying, hey, we're going to have this video with so-and-so, you already have it done. Yeah. And their whole, cart before the horse style is that they need to name drop and clout chase as much as they possibly can. They have zero understanding of preparing for things ahead of time.
I think that's why they have so many response videos, and they're just going to keep responding back and forth until there's nothing left.
Well, there was a point where Jen with Fundy Fridays had done a reaction video to them, and then they did a reaction video to her, and then she did a reaction video to that, and then they did another reaction video, and then she was like, no, y'all are in timeout. We're not going to do this. And so there was also a moment where that exact same thing happened to Mickey Atkins. They love that back and forth.
Talking about like cussing and music. You responded to us, and then we responded to you again.
I don't think I knew you guys responded.
I might have in that video said that I wanted to punch you in the face.
Josh has friends on Fundy.
So I love that they leave that in because they're like, oh, did you see that we talked to you? And he's like, no, I had no idea.
I stopped listening to y'all.
And it's like, again, this is your video.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to leave in the scenes where other people dunk on you. It just kind of goes to show that of their hours and hours and hours of footage, this is what they thought would make themselves look good.
Yep. It's the best that they had.
Right. You just don't know how to do this well. Just like the man on the street interviews that they were doing when they have had their friends on to be part of their like live stream or whatever. Basically picking fights with their friends about stupid doctrinal issues. I remember they had this one lady on who was, I guess, from their church, and they were talking about some doctrinal things, and they were ganging up on her, and she was like, look, I don't really feel comfortable talking about stuff like this when my husband isn't here. And a lot of commenters were like, ew, she can't talk without her husband. And I'm like, she doesn't want to talk without somebody to back her up. You can't even get good discussions going with your friends. Why? Why do you think that you're going to be able to have conversations with people that you don't know? And I don't know. They are desperate to not get a real job. They're going to keep flinging spaghetti at the wall.
And a hate group.
Yeah.
And they posted a couple of my videos. Like, they're not huge fans of you guys at all.
That's to put it in a nice way.
I'm like a public school Christian. People that come for me are like the homeschool Christians. Were you homeschool? Like if you went to school and your high school taught about evolution, then you might like my stuff.
Wait, so you telling me you believe in evolution?
To an extent. Like the development of like species, the beak develops because the finches or whatever.
Okay, so you're ultimately telling me microevolution.
I don't think we came from monkeys. I do believe that
Okay.
God created, Adam and Eve.
Good.
Are you old Earth or New Earth?
New Earth, baby.
No way. I did
Earth,
not know
baby.
that was even a thing
Really?
until after college.
Okay, so I love
No
that he
way.
knows so little about Paul and Morgan because he has paid
does.
so little attention to them that he doesn't know that they were both homeschooled, love homeschooling, and plan to homeschool their boys.
Yep. And he had no clue. He's like, yeah, I just get it from like the homeschool Christian. Y'all probably never heard of them before. They're so weird.
Right. We talk a little bit technically here. How shitty is this video? Oh my god, they are silhouettes. You see no people because they don't have any goddamn lighting because they don't understand how to set that up. Now, if they had mounted the camera on the dashboard, then we would have actually had light because that is how most people record videos in a car. And they have done so many videos in a car before. I don't know how it hasn't clicked for them. You don't see any of the people's faces. The audio's garbled because you're behind the speaker instead of in front of the speaker. Like, y'all have been doing YouTube for 7 goddamn years. How are you still this bad at it?
It feels like that's not just something that fascinates them. It just doesn't seem like it's a passion of theirs. They just want to capture themselves talking.
Exactly. They are extremely invested and not
Mhm.
learning a goddamn thing and being proud that they're
I
not
agree.
learning a goddamn thing.
Yeah, they are pretty proud of it. Exactly. The only problem that we have is that y'all are not being Patreons for us.
Exactly. We need your ad revenue, damn it. Don't watch on YouTube. The fact that they get so butthurt about that really
Yeah.
cracks me up, because we have like this no touch policy,
Uh-huh.
and watching it on an alternate viewer where we don't have those interaction options is not a big deal. We don't
Right.
even care enough to give them a thumbs down.
I guess that's what public school will do to you.
Public school, Earth is billions and billions of years old, and
What?
God manufactured, this beautiful creation story.
What's your short answer to how you reconcile the Bible saying, 7 days?
What is a literal day for God? Is it 24 hours?
I mean, throughout the rest of Scripture, though, it seems like it's pointing to a day.
No. Wrong. A day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day. This is how
Right.
I know you don't read your fucking Bible. It's all wibbly wobbly,
Mhm.
timey wimey.
Yep.
And yeah, of course, Paul doesn't know that because he has only read a couple of choice sections of the Bible that his
Yeah.
pastor has brought up. It's never from his own just genuine spend a year reading through the whole Bible. He does
No.
not have the
No.
attention span. He does not have the commitment to be able to do that stuff. And that's where, Bethany was talking about how Dave had in recent years, as he was doing this like serious deconstruction work, not even necessarily trying to deconstruct, just like having questions and seeking out answers from the ultimate arbiter, which is the Bible for them. And
Mhm.
he was reading through the entire Bible multiple times during his marriage with Bethany. And
Mm.
meanwhile, I can guarantee you that Paul has never made it through the Bible, the whole thing, once.
Yeah, that's doubtful. I think Paul can also get away, being homeschooled, never having even an understanding of what evolution is, go, oh, well, the Bible says God created everything, and just walk away from it and not think about it again.
100%. I remember being a homeschooled kid and having no idea about evolution and whatnot, other than the straw man that had been created by my parents, Bob Jones University, Ken Ham. And so my understanding of evolution was full of these supposed plot holes. Like, ooh, there aren't, intermediaries of evolution that we can see. In my head,
Right.
I was like, gotcha. I just had no concept of any kind of rebuttal to that, because the only people I was allowed to be around were other homeschoolers, my family, which included a lot of homeschoolers, my church, and everybody was young
Exactly.
earth creationists. So there was never any question about that. And then carbon dating, I remember specifically having Bob Jones and Ken Ham components of my homeschooling that talked about how completely unreliable carbon dating was. And and I don't even know that it was necessarily that inaccurate or unreliable. We have better science that backs up the fact that things are billions of years old. When I was still stuck in that information control, I had no fucking clue. And because it was so integral to my family and my community that I hold these beliefs, I didn't want to question them. Because if I questioned them and I came up with a different answer from them, I knew that would not go well.
Right.
I didn't want to be on somebody's, prayer list or whatever.
I would disagree. I don't think that I found in scripture that it points to, God did this in 24 hours and then he did that. I think it's kind of a beautiful story.
Why wouldn't your natural go-to be to just take the Bible at what it says.
You guys biblical, like literally, like do you take it literally and you say this is literally what it says and that's like what I will take it as?
I will, obviously there are portions that are clearly poetic. There are parables. But if it appears that we should take it literally, I'm going to take it literally.
Where do you then?
So who determines?
Even the way that he asks that, he's like, why don't you just believe it the way it's actually written?
Yes. And it completely disregards the fact that it was not written in English. It was not written in modern English. And it was like, I'm sure he reads something like, NIV or NSRB, maybe ESV. He doesn't read KJV. He's still basically assuming that translation that he has is the most accurate interpretation and translation of the original text.
It survived all of everything and it remains perfect.
Exactly. And it's kind of like if you watch the like 1960s movies and the slang that they have, there's so much that doesn't make any goddamn sense until you like do a little hunting about the context of the slang of the era. And you're like, oh, now I get it. But if you were just watching the movie and taking it literally, you would be very confused why the cowboys are talking about somebody who is cool and it's a bad thing.
Right. Exactly.
So the exact same fucking thing for something that is 2,000 years old in some cases, sometimes older than that if you want to talk about the Pentateuch. It's impossible to look at it and take it at face value without any additional context. That's just grossly misunderstanding anything about writing, about language, about culture. And like they think that they know what the Jewish context would be. And the evangelicals have no fucking clue about like 90% of it. They look at the Jewish holidays and they say, oh, do you see how this points to Jesus and this points to Jesus? And it's like, no, actually I don't, because it doesn't. That has nothing to do with anything here. And it's this willful ignorance. We'll see this a little bit later, but like Josh and Sydney absolutely have done the work to look at the Hebrew and the Greek and the cultural context to more deeply understand this primary book of faith for them. Whereas Paul and Morgan are perfectly happy to only know the most surface level and to take pride in how ignorant they are.
They don't want to do the work. They don't want to question or reevaluate anything. And that's questioning the entire God of the Bible and Jesus. And that's too risky. It's too dangerous.
Absolutely. They've described it as either pulling a thread and then the whole sweater falls apart, or like intentionally deconstructing and looking at things and questioning them directly. You know what? For me, it was Jenga. Because for a while, I was able to question things and, pull the block out, put it on top, pull the block out, put it on top. And the tower stayed up. But then I would hit a key thing that, like, for me, when I pulled that block out, the whole tower fell.
Exactly. That's a good analogy.
Because
you don't know when it's coming. You could make the smallest move. And you're like, oh, wow. Okay, well, I wasn't ready for all of this. But...
Right? I mean, for a long time, it had been the gay issue, But then I get into college, and I am working as a music director at the Christian church camp. and I get replaced with a man, even though he had
of course.
none of my qualifications or experience. Like, he had literally zero experience and had only taught himself guitar over the previous year, while I had like 15 years of formal instruction, like 7 years of experience. I was running my own piano studio at that point I knew all the things about music with varying levels, because I had done adult stuff as well. So when it came to the teenagers, I had done more mature music for them. This guy decides he wants my job, and when I protested, they were like, well, you should know your place. You should not try to usurp authority over a man.
God damn. It's
And-
like my place is right here. I'm telling you.
Exactly. I was like, look, the Bible in Timothy commands that I, as an older woman, teach women and children. That is exactly what I'm doing here. And they were like, well, the teenage boys are a little bit too close to adults, so you shouldn't be teaching them. And I was like, they're
Right.
children.
Explain to me why it's valid for a woman to teach children. Like, what is it that happens to them the second they turn 18, where all of a sudden, because it's a man, they're better than you? That never made sense to me either. So you can teach all the fundamental truths that this child needs to help determine the choices they make. You can have influence on that, but then as soon as they're an adult, you can't anymore. So your influence is wrong all of a sudden,
Yes.
I guess. Like, that just doesn't make any sense.
And they were just so staunch about it, and there was no openness for discussion. And so I literally quit that night. That was the big Jenga block. Because, like, the gay
Okay,
blocks had
yeah.
kind of made it wobble, but
Yeah.
the gender one completely toppled everything. I was like, oh, okay. So all of this study to show myself approved,
Right.
that doesn't matter because I'm a woman.
Yeah.
All of that, you should be teaching the younger women and children, that goes out because they're not children enough or whatever.
Right.
Or even just that a man wants the position.
Right.
It's not
Exactly.
even necessarily about me trying to teach a section of people that I shouldn't. It's literally just, a guy wants your job, so because he's a guy, he's going to get it. And I was like,
Right.
that is not the meritocracy that I have been raised to expect. And,
Right.
like, what was the fucking point
Exactly.
of me devoting like 14, 15 years of formal training and, like, working towards this so I could be a tool for God, and you're gonna tell me that because some jackass has a dick and wants my job, all of that goes out the window and doesn't matter.
Oh, but it's because God said so.
Yeah.
You bring into like dinosaur fossils.
Mhm.
Are you one of the Christians that believe Satan put dinosaur fossils into the ground to confuse us?
What? Okay, I don't believe that.
Okay, so you guys weren't that homeschooled.
I'm guessing you're probably not a big Ken Ham guy, the Creation Museum.
I don't know who that is. No.
Okay, Ken Ham is someone that really defends through like science and logic and scripture, defends young Earth, and I tend to fall into his camp.
Well,
Not
he
the
definitely
Ken
doesn't know
Ham.
about Ken Ham. Yeah.
I remember being just shocked to find out that people didn't know who Ken Ham was, because I assumed
Oh, yeah.
that he was a really big deal outside
Yeah.
of just my small community,
Right.
because my small community made such a big deal out of him.
And he was the one who gave us all of the answers that we're supposed to use when we're debating people.
Yes, exactly. I have gone back to look at some of those articles in the last year or two, and I mean, the only reason I fell for that shit was because I was like 8.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly.
But okay, and I
Yeah.
have to torture everyone with this every single time Ken Ham comes up. Millions of dead things buried in rock layers laid down by water all over the earth. Because that's how the flood distributed fossils.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Oh my god. It's a core memory right there.
And I remember being a little kid singing this song in public.
We were getting programmed.
I am sure people were giving me and my mom a side eye because you've got this child singing a song about billions of dead things, and it's so like country and jaunty.
Oh my god, that sounds right though. That really tracks.
It does.
Especially
We
for
talk
that
about
time.
the darkest subjects, and the way that they make those palatable for children is by setting them to
like
creepily
nursery
happy
rhymes.
tunes. And then you look at shows like Barney or something,
Mhm.
and everything was
Oh, yeah.
super kid friendly. But no, that was the evil. Like, we were
Yeah.
not allowed to watch Barney. Because it was too diverse, it was too inclusive. It was
Exactly.
like, love yourself. You're perfect just the way you are. Now, even though that was actually Mr. Rogers' time, he was a Presbyterian minister.
Oh, was he?
Yes. But you
I didn't
never would
realize
have
that.
known. Never would have known just by
No.
watching his TV show. Because that just
No.
wasn't the point of the show.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think that it is beautiful that someone who is a professional minister recognizes where to stop the religious push,
Right.
where to
Yeah.
have things that are not specifically religious.
Like, I don't think there's been kids programming that has come close to that.
I will say tentatively Bluey.
Yeah, I do like Bluey. They do cover a lot of important topics on that show. So much better than fucking Blippi. So much
Adventures
better
in
than
Odyssey, Patch the Pirate.
Oh my gosh.
Salty the
yes.
Singing Songbook,
Salty.
Donut Man, Bible Man.
Back when I was posting more of these types of reels, and it said something to the effect of, I do not see how a Christian could vote Democrat in today's political landscape.
Funny. Yes, but not funny. Haha. Funny weird.
Can we just say how fucking juvenile that is? Like,
Yeah, I don't think that was necessary.
so, funny thing here. I do not know if this was intentional or not, but whenever he is in these videos with people, he is closer to the camera than whoever it is he's interviewing.
That is interesting.
Like, if it's intentional, then, it just is another example of
Weird.
Paul being completely self-obsessed and insecure. I mean, that was the fucking title of my video about him.
Yup. Facts.
Yeah. And in your pushback, you actually said in 2020 that you voted for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Is morals lined up more closely with your morals?
It's tough to vote for a guy that has trials already, if we're just calling a spade. I think the big thing, and it's kind of a cop-out that a lot of Christians lead on, is the abortion take of like, oh, I'm adamantly pro-life, I can't vote for, a Democrat. So something that Andy Mineo posted back in 2016. So it was like the previous 30 years of presidency, and regardless of whether we had a Republican or Democrat in office, from like 1970 to 2016, the abortion rate went down. It's difficult for me to then look at Trump and Biden and say, oh, well, me voting for Trump is really going to push down, because I feel like the pro-life topic is what gets a lot of Christians.
Absolutely.
It's tough for me to sit here and see that and then be like, oh, well, I have to vote. My hands are tied. Otherwise, abortion rates are going to jump through the roof.
How could you vote for someone who openly calls for the free state-funded slaughter of unborn children?
He's
Pro-choice.
pro-choice.
Radically pro-choice.
So he's not pro-abortion. He's pro-choice and giving kind of that option. Now, I'm somewhat a fan of the separation in church and state. I love voting for Christians. It's very interesting to sit here and say, okay, I elected a Christian individual. I now expect the United States of America as a whole, where we do have freedom of religion, to now adhere to a Christian principle.
Do you feel like saving freeborn babies is a Christian principle?
Christians certainly seem to take that kind of side more so than others. Look at the facts. We see kind of this legislation, and certainly they can, pander to their sides.
I'd have to look back at that, and statistics are seeing less under Biden because of things that Trump helped put into place, including
less that are documented. I am pro-life. Like Sydney and I, we get pregnant at any point. We're keeping the baby.
Good.
But again, we're talking about now the safety of mothers If the doctor comes to us however many weeks into the pregnancy and he basically says, hey, Sydney and Josh, if you try to have this baby, your wife's going to die. I think there's some pro-lifers that would say, doesn't matter.
Which that's a very rare
case.
Percentage of abortions happening because of that
very,
scenario
very
is tiny.
This might be a hot take. In instances of when a woman and she gets pregnant from that, I have a very difficult time, even as a Christian, standing and saying, yeah, you have to keep that baby.
Baby should be punished by the sin of someone else.
That's a very nuanced issue.
For this topic alone, I am extremely impressed with him, and I can tell that he has really done the work to look into this and have a nuanced perspective, to even be open to a nuanced perspective on this. The way that he brought up the life and safety of the mother when it is a product of sexual assault, especially child sexual assault, it's so hard to say what should be done, and you never know what's going to feel right for you. You just never know at all.
Yeah.
He's so informed on it comparatively to, I would say he's super informed on it regardless of, religious or political affiliation. Yeah. He's the most genuine about it, and Paul is just this disingenuous who doesn't know what he's talking about, just parroting things that he's heard from Allie Beth Stuckey and Mark Driscoll and Greg Locke, and it's like, dude.
And when you're talking about who you're going to elect, we're also going to be looking at what kind of laws are they going to be putting in place. Are they going to be putting in place laws that allow care when it is vital? And I hate when they keep bringing up, it's a very, very low percentage of pregnancies.
So dismissive.
It's such a low percentage.
Oh my God.
Because when you're talking about legislation, it has to be across the board, black and white. This is the rule.
Yep.
And so you're basically saying, well, there's so few of them that the laws shouldn't reflect their cases.
Correct. But there's enough of them happening that they find it a gotcha for this particular talking point. So it's just like with trans people and gay people. We're simultaneously such a small percentage of the populace that we should not have our own separate protections. We should not have, equal standing on this, that, or the other. But we are also this like unstoppable trend that is just taking over the younger generations.
Brainwashing your children.
I've seen studies. I don't know fully how well they compare with these other studies I'm thinking of, but they were saying that of like Gen Z and some of the like elder Gen Alpha, they are like gay or some form of LGBTQ at like triple the rate that the percentages of, stuff had said up until like 10 years ago. And there's been this new emerging discussion with that about, well, is that the cause or is that the effect? Are people becoming gay because it is a social contagion? Or are we just finding out about more gay people and more gay people are being open about it because we are finally having softening views, softening laws, etc. Easier to be gay right now. It's way easier to be trans now, despite all of the nasty legislation that's going on. It is still easier to be trans right now than it was in 1950.
Yeah, for sure.
And I fucking love it whenever anyone brings up the percentage of people who are left-handed, the percentage of people who are redheaded. We certainly don't completely discount those people.
I want a response from him that actually backs up his side versus just more questioning.
Yeah, what if, dude? What if? Well, what if the sky was purple?
Yeah. Paul just doesn't even, it's almost like he's given up processing what people are saying.
Mm.
Like, basically, Chad's point here is you don't have to be a Republican just because you're a Christian.
Exactly.
And the whole abortion thing, I think Josh wanted to blow that up because he knows this is going to be more of a disagreement between the two of them. But Chad even says, I'm pro-life. Like, if we got pregnant, there's no question, like, we would have the baby. But yet,
Other
I acknowledge
people
that
are
other
allowed.
people need that choice. Yeah. So far, I'm liking what he's saying.
Right?
I don't
Oh,
think
the
that there's...
separation of church and state.
Yes.
I'm so glad he used that phrase specifically because, I mean, we heard that growing up to mean the government has to stay out of the church. The government doesn't get to tell the church what to do. Whereas the church should not be having influence on the government. The church should not be deciding what is legal for everyone in the country. But yet again, Paul doesn't respond to that.
Nope, he is not ready for that conversation. I almost wonder if they had that conversation and then he played it back and was like, shit.
Yeah, it could be. That's a very good point. There might be a lot of content that they just cut out of Paul talking and just being stupid.
Right. I'm trying to remember if it's this one or Dave and Bethany or both. But there were times where Morgan was talking and you could tell she was about, like, she was taking that breath to, like, say her next big sentence that she was really passionate about. And it cuts to a new scene.
And it cut it off. Oh.
I know that there is stuff that they have cut out, and I find it funny that I'm like, okay, so you have a line.
You haven't quite figured it out yet. All the other things that need to be cut out.
Exactly.
Anything I could say to, like, give a solution for it, but
you have empathy for them.
I mean, dude,
you have empathy for that situation.
I have empathy.
As do I.
In that situation, I think some others
no, you don't,
who didn't even have a choice in having sex. She did not have that choice. I think she does deserve to have a choice.
There are a lot of stories of women who have been that got an abortion and come back and say it actually made my healing process a lot harder because I got an abortion because I chose violence to balance out violence, and how, like, that is actually not a wise decision.
The University of California, San Francisco actually did research on this that they published in 2020. 5 years after abortion, nearly all women say it was the right decision. Wow. Over 95% of the women in a landmark UC San Francisco study said it was the right decision for them. So we're talking about less than 5%. So they want to talk about small percentages that don't matter. I'm sorry, but we should not be basing the main part of our conversation on how 5% of us felt. I realize that sounds like completely antithetical to what I was saying earlier about them, being upset about the small percentages and they don't matter and so we shouldn't think of them. But I'm not saying that the 5% of women who regret their abortion should have been forced to have that abortion. Exactly. I'm saying they still deserve the choice, and that unfortunately, choices like this, where we're not going to know how we're going to feel until we do it. Because unfortunately, a lot of the big things in our lives, we don't know until we do it. We can think about it. Right. And that is just how life goes. There will be things that we choose to do that make things harder or easier. And that's life. It is this amalgamation of good and bad things. And you just do your best. But they're like, oh, well, only 5% of women get abortions because they are assaulted. And so therefore we should ban all abortions because those 5% of women do not count.
Right.
What UC San Francisco is saying that only 5% of these women regret it. So it should still be an option for everyone.
They like to use that, people regretting it, especially, I mean, I've seen it a ton with trans debate too.
Detransitioners
regret their transition, and it's like nobody is saying that it should have been illegal for them to do it in the first place.
Right.
because, they still need to have the choice, and hopefully the majority of people are able to make the right choice for themselves. But don't take away everyone else's choice just because some people didn't make the right one for themselves.
Correct. What also gets me is, of the people who do regret it, how many of them honestly regret it without any external influence telling them they should regret it? I know a couple of women who regretted their abortions, but they were all deeply involved in the church communities that I left. And so, of course, they regretted it. They were told every other Sunday how they murdered and slaughtered children. So, yeah, that's going to sink in at some point. And they go to these post-abortion support groups that are run by churches. Like, grief is not linear. It does not have a time constraint. It's going to be different for everyone, but it just feels like in those groups, there is so much self-hatred locked up in all of this. Like, I need to continue feeling guilty. I'm not a good person if I don't always feel guilty about this. There's no moving on from it, carrying that cross for the rest of your life. And that to me is so sad.
I don't believe my votes, Democrat or Republican, has a direct effect in, honestly, the amount of abortions that are had or not had. I think that it's kind of lame that a lot of people feel handcuffed to vote for a guy that's like on trial for a number of things, including because at least it'll save a couple nibbies potentially when that might not be the reality. Let's say Trump gets in office, Supreme Court, you name it, abortion is illegal now.
Okay.
Do we think that now the number of abortions just stops? People stop having abortions?
Look at places, conservative run states, where it is the abortion laws have gotten a lot more strict and the amount of abortions is significantly decreased.
Now, the amount of reported abortions, right?
Okay.
Now, I've seen things on like TikTok, women can make abortion cocktails. They can do it themselves. Now, it's all abortion, what you want to call it, but a woman doing that to her own body without a medical professional, that's now very unsafe for her. I'm not saying, right or wrong, but people are still going to have abortion. It's kind of like the gun rule. Like Republicans love guns. Hey, if we take away guns, the criminals are still going to get them, right?
He's saying it in a hillbilly voice.
I tell you what, bro, that's how I've always heard it. I'm from the sticks, man. But if we take away abortion, they're not going to go away. Now, all of a sudden, just safer abortions are going to go away, and people will still, this is horrible to say, people are still going to get a coat hanger. People are still make an abortion cocktail. What are they going to do?
I think a lot of people, especially the younger generations, will set their kind of moral compasses based off of what is the law of the land, what is being espoused from the top down. That impacts and greatly affects a lot of people's views on, well, what is right or wrong when it comes to abortion. So when you get a president and is standing for pro-life versus someone who's pro-choice, pro-death, it is going to impact the way that the common man, many Americans see this issue.
Yeah. Keep doing something kind of interesting in your conversation there, in that you're equating instantly pro-choice with pro-abortion or pro-death.
Okay.
When I still do believe women are very intelligent, and women, quite frankly, probably have a much better emotional kind of feel than men do. And so I don't think that giving women the ability to choose necessarily is taking a pro-abortion stance, or pro-death stance. It's just saying in these instances, talking about, again, like women are raped, there's incest in situations. Dude, it's a nuanced topic.
What would you say,
I
Morgan?
just think the people on the other side who are very against pro-choice are not necessarily saying like women shouldn't get a choice to do anything in life, but they are saying it should never be a choice to end an innocent baby's life. You should not have that choice. Like, no one should have the choice to end a baby's life. They're not saying women can't have choice, but this just specifically is not a choice to be made. Like, you don't ever choose life or death over an innocent being.
Well,
even have a valid point.
No. And her whole thing was, it's not that we say you can't have any choices, you just can't have choice over this. I'm sorry,
Right.
but pro-choice relates specifically to abortion, hun. Like,
Right.
we're not saying that women are not given any choices. There's various things that we will say women are denied choices for, but pro-choice, that label specifically means abortion.
Right.
Nobody
Yeah.
says pro-choice. It's about whether women want to wear a one-piece or a two-piece. They just fucking
Get the
don't,
fuck outta here.
Morgan. That's the dumbest goddamn thing ever. And did you notice how as soon as Josh really hit hard on how women will do abortion cocktails, they'll get a hanger.
Yeah.
And Paul's like, okay, well, but if we don't change the laws, that means that people's morals compass might be different.
Right.
It's like, dude, you had no fucking rebuttal for that whatsoever, so you changed the topic
Yeah.
like a goddamn coward. Good
And
job.
you are just joking yourself to think that people are going to change their morals based on the laws of the land. Yeah, think about gay marriage, okay?
Yes.
Were people still getting married when gay marriage was illegal? Yes. It just wasn't recognized by the state. It wasn't reported. Just like
Exactly. It was
Chad is saying.
unreported. Not given
It's-
the tax status.
I don't even think Paul understands what he's saying here. He's
No.
saying, yes, abortions go down on paper, reported abortions go down, but abortions that are happening in an unsafe way are going to continue. You're just basically saying you're not allowing the safe version of it because of your belief in this book. There's nothing in the Bible about abortion.
No. The only time anything even even remotely close to abortion is when the Old Testament laws talk about if a woman is killed and if a pregnant woman is killed. Both times it is a single murder, and in the case of a pregnant woman, it is also a property dispute because you
Damn.
caused damage to that man's property because it was not born yet. So therefore it does not count as double homicide. Now, you also have the hotly debated law that talks about if a woman is thought to be cheating on her spouse and gets pregnant, and they go to the temple and he mixes the bitter water, and if she was unfaithful, the bitter water will cause her belly to swell and she will lose the baby.
Wow.
Yeah. There's like step-by-step directions on how to do this little test
wild.
in the Bible. And so those are the only times it ever talks about abortion. And
Yeah.
the pro-lifers, the Christian ones at least, will point towards verses like, I think it was John or was it David, said that, you knew me in my mother's womb. And it's like, yes, he knows, God, knows everything that's going to happen. Everyone has free will, but he knows ultimately what is going to happen. If you have that concept of God, then he does know you because he knew that you were actually going to be born.
Right.
And if you weren't actually going to be born, he would know that as well. It doesn't matter. He knows all of you,
Exactly.
regardless
He
of how
knows.
things turns out.
And this
Oh boy.
then gets even more into the weeds of, okay, so now let's say we have a woman who below the poverty line. Okay, she's pregnant. She lives in a state where she can't, make that decision. She has the baby. Now that baby is in, an orphanage or what have you. I think that one thing that kind of sucks is that we see this really rah-rah pro-life on the Republican side of things, but there's not that same call for change or reformation in like the orphan side of things. Because let's be honest, a lot of these women, if they do have to stick with it, they're not going to keep the baby.
Yeah.
It's going to be an orphan.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about quality of life. We're talking about a kid that doesn't know where their next meal's coming. And again, I know that that's not the answer.
Let's do what we can. Let's put our money. Let's look for ways to make the adoption process, to make the foster care systems healthier.
The wait list to adopt a child is 2 years long because there's not enough people like giving up their babies for adoption. And I would say that that's probably in most states.
Keyword
Like
babies.
you hear,
Yeah, I'm going to stop her right there. There is a wait list for newborns.
Yeah.
because most people want a newborn because they want it before it's quote unquote damaged.
Right. Yeah.
And there is a really, really gross thing that happens in adoption spheres when children are adopted at an older age. They rehome them and will transfer their adoption to a new family if they decide that the kid is too much of a problem, they don't like them, they have medical or mental health issues, they're queer or whatever, and like they just don't want this child anymore, and so they're going to transfer the adoption. They will have these private events where it's effectively like America's Got Talent or American Idol, with kids trying to advertise themselves to a room full of prospective new adoptive parents. Sometimes this includes like a date almost, where the kid goes with the potential adoptive parent to go talk privately, and they have to, you know, be on their best behavior and stuff. Not only does that happen in these rehoming situations, but that happens enough in primary adoption situations for kids that are getting older, that there is a goddamn, was it Pixar or DreamWorks movie about it called Meet the Robinsons.
Oh yeah.
And this kid like is getting ready to meet prospective adoptive parents at the beginning of the movie, and they're telling him, you know, like, don't talk about this, don't talk about this, don't do this, don't do this. And he's just so like anxious and depressed over having to perform in order to get people to love him,
to get accepted.
And then
it's heartbreaking.
It is. And thank God the movie ends with him finding a family.
Yes.
That loves him for who he is, and it's all better.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to watch that movie now. I haven't seen
It's a
it
good
in a minute.
movie.
It's so good. So good. That's enough that it made it into a major motion picture. It's prevalent.
Yeah, and I just think that Morgan must have just been grasping for straws, because that was such a weird argument to make, when like his argument for the first place was, you know, you're so adamant about abortion, but where are you in helping kids that are not wanted? And her response is like, well, there's not enough babies up for adoption. You're not even addressing what he just talked about.
Exactly.
And then Paul's saying like, yeah, let's make it better. Let's get those resources, just because he knows he has to say something positive.
Right. And it's like, since when? Since when have you ever done that with any goddamn thing?
Nothing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
For choosing to abort their babies when they don't even realize
there is help out there in the world. Like, there are believers and non-believers that have created facilities and just resources that I think like if you go into Planned Parenthood, you're not going to hear about those resources.
That is a fucking lie. Do you know who will help you get signed up for Medicaid and EBT and TANF and all of that? Yeah, Planned Parenthood has people for that. And if they don't have somebody in-house, they will tell you exactly where to go to get it done.
Yeah.
That is something that some pregnancy centers claim to offer, but literally all they're doing is walking you through the same forms, and hopefully they know what they're doing. They're not medical professionals, and they're not government professionals, so they don't necessarily know how these things need to be done, what things could potentially disqualify someone, and if they're disqualified from the most common programs, what are some backup programs? As a person who has experienced homelessness, never go to a Baptist church for help.
Yeah.
Never, ever, ever. You go to an ecumenical service. You go to a Catholic service. At best, you go to a Lutheran service. You do not go to typically evangelical denomination churches to get any sort of assistance. The one time that I did that, I was going through a period where I had no health insurance, and I was on some very expensive medications for my nerve pain and my psychiatric stuff. So they covered the cost of my meds for like a month or two until my new insurance kicked in. And the whole time I was in that pharmacy because they had their own little like pharmacy, waiting to pick stuff up. They had sermons playing over the speakers. They had tracts and other church materials everywhere. There was no tracts for where to get the free bus passes or how to apply for Medicaid. Like none of that. It was just the religious stuff, right? And every time you talk to somebody there, they would witness to you.
Oh, yeah.
Literally every single interaction in every single way for the entirety that I was inside their building, I was getting witnessed to. That is not how it is.
I know all this. I have it memorized.
I promise I know the verses at least as well as you do. I have special Awanas awards. Do you?
Right? Yep.
I don't experience that when I go to the Lutheran food bank or the Catholic food bank or talk to the Catholic department that handles giving you, rental deposit funding and stuff like that. I don't experience that anywhere else. It's only in the evangelical. Like, I have gone without meds for months at a time because I would not go back to that. And it doesn't matter that I was going through nightmarish situation there. I was willing to take that nightmare over the completely religiously traumatic childhood trauma inducing. You can't do it.
Well, even if they had resources that they were giving out, it's like you wouldn't want it because it's like your prize for becoming one of them. You have to basically commit yourself to live how they want you to live. They just want you to become one of them.
Exactly. Morgan is talking about how crisis pregnancy centers, she's not saying that by name, but that's what she's talking about. Crisis pregnancy centers have, supplies for new moms, expectant moms that are, impoverished or however don't have the resources to acquire those things for themselves.
Yeah.
But that shit does not last. Like if we look at Morgan, when they got pregnant, they had not really set aside money for it. And so she puts together this ginormous Amazon wish list, right? Or like baby registry, right? And she's got stuff on there that isn't even like standard baby gear. Most of the baby gear that you need the most of and that you need the most was not on her list. And the stuff that she did have that were necessities, she picked the most expensive version of that thing because she's bougie like that. And she expects everybody to just shower her with gifts. And she got sent, because this was on her registry, a $1,400 stroller.
I don't understand the person's mindset who's buying that.
Yeah.
Like, if you have $1,400 for charity.
For random YouTubers. Can you imagine how many diapers that would buy?
Right. Exactly.
That stuff that she had was overly priced, bougie shit that she didn't actually need. If you could not have prepared to do this for yourself, and you're going to put this on a public wish list that you send to your thousands of subscribers, and you actually expect them to spend this kind of money on you, how fucking entitled are you? Like, ask for the budget version, and if somebody sends you the name brand, they went out looking to spend that extra money on you because they wanted to.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. And what's funny is the stroller came after she pitched a fit on Instagram and YouTube that people were bullying her by removing things from her registry list, saying it was purchased when they hadn't actually purchased it because she didn't get a shipping email about it. And so she was like, oh my God, people are checking off so many things and they're not actually buying them. This is badgering a pregnant woman. This is abuse, blah, 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 right? For days, she goes on about this. And then after the normal shipping time frame expires, she suddenly has this mountain, and I do mean mountain, of gifts. It was like a Baird level mountain of gifts. And that included, in short short succession after that, the $1,400 stroller. You only got that shit because you claimed people were bullying you when actually they weren't. People just bought it from a different site, or they got a different brand or something. I cannot with her entitled little bougie ass who then expects women who can't feed themselves to carry a pregnancy to term, even though prenatal care costs money. Even if you have Medicaid and it's free, you still have to take time off from work to do it. Pay for transportation. If you have to take public transportation, you're going to have to take additional time off work because of how slow public transportation is. Like, there's so many financial factors in just carrying the pregnancy to term. And notice how she phrased when she was talking about the wait list for babies. And she was saying not enough people are giving their babies up for adoption.
Right? To some epidemic. People are just not giving up their babies.
Like, those people who want to adopt children are not entitled to children any more than someone who is trying to get pregnant. Spoiler alert. Paul admits that he likes being right and he likes telling people that he's right to make himself feel better about himself. And I know that Morgan is doing that exact same thing. It's just funny to hear them outright say it.
Admit it. Yeah. I was surprised by that too. We actually, wow, can we get this on camera? Oh, we have this on camera.
Yes. Like, it's not even a caption that somebody took out of context or something. Like, no, that's just exactly what he says.
Exactly what he's trying to say. I feel good about myself when I tell people they're wrong. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's more like we want a secure country where the immigrants will come in legally.
Well,
do you think that's too much to ask?
I love that he has experience with this, because someone who lives in Kentucky is very unlikely to really have many interactions with people like this.
I do think that I made the right decision.
What are some ways that Biden align more closely with your values?
Seeing how Trump treats women is a big one.
Okay, so you say Biden treats women better than Trump?
I don't know either of the guys personally, but I would say you see some of the things that Trump is standing trial for. Sydney and I kind of talked about, she mentioned like her trauma, so it definitely is something that now I'm a bit more passionate about. I think Trump's kind of a fraud.
Okay.
Get a guy up there that's almost claiming Christianity, pander to us like we're stupid. But
you think Trump is a fraud, but Biden saying he's a Catholic, but super pro-choice. You think he's not?
I think Trump panders to us, tries to pander to Christians. Then you look at that interview where the guy's like, "Well, what's your favorite verse or book of the Bible?" And he's like, "I like both Testaments, old and new. They're both great." You know, and it's just like he panders like, "I love Jesus," and they're like, "Well, what's your favorite verse?" "I can't say I have one. They're all great verses, really. That's what I say. They're all great." And you're like, dude.
So, gotta say, the way he's mocking Trump for faking being Christian, I feel like in a more microcosm, that is our feelings towards Paul and Morgan, and the stupid bullshit that they say that makes it obvious they're not really as devout or whatever as they say that they are.
Right.
Like, you're not authentic at all. I think he's a fraud, and I think that he's...
So you think, because I hear you kind of going after Trump and saying, I don't like this about Trump, I feel like Trump is this. But as far as Biden goes, though, like, what good fruit is coming out of a Biden presidency for a Christian?
He do be sniffing hair, for sure.
Okay.
I will say this about Biden, and I saw a video the other day of Joe talking about losing his first wife and kind of how that affected him and like the love that he has for his sons. And so if nothing else, I can say, well, hey, Biden hasn't cheated on his wife. He's loyal to his family.
Definitely loyal to his family.
So I am a bit struck by, this, because I remember in 2008 when Obama was first elected, my dad wrote him a letter to say that, I didn't vote for you. I don't agree with your politics, but I appreciate that you are a good father, loving husband who has never cheated on his wife, have a beautiful family and obviously beautiful family connections. And I respect that about you.
Oh, okay.
And that was one of those moments where I was like, hey, maybe my parents
Yeah.
could, accept some other more intense things, which, spoiler alert, they could not, but
Yeah. Damn it.
right.
Don't lose hope.
And so if nothing else, I can say, well, hey, Biden hasn't cheated on his wife. He's loyal to his family.
Definitely loyal to his family, loyal to Hunter.
Yes, Hunter is his son. He is loyal to him. That's just kind of, basic bar. And he's like, which tells me that if his boys ever step too far out of line, he's going to feel justified in being like, oh, you kid.
Yeah.
They have explicitly stated in a video they did during the Shiny Happy People thing, if he came out as gay and wanted to marry a man, they would not go to his wedding. He would, quote unquote, know that he was loved, but know also that his parents would never attend a gay wedding.
Which is just really sad.
Yeah. To consider that love is pretty bad. 'Cause I could see if it was, if they're convicted of a sex offense or murder or something. Yeah, I'm not going to go to your thing. Do you know why? Because you harmed other people.
Right. Yeah.
Watching the smoke coming out of their ears when I ask them to explain how being gay is, physically harmful to you. They
oh my gosh.
damn near spontaneously combust.
I like the fact also that Paul has nothing to say in Trump's defense. Like, the only tactic that he has is, oh, what about Biden? Oh, so you think Biden's wonderful? Oh, you think Biden's perfect? It's like, no, bro, you're asking me if I regret voting for him. Like,
there were a number of other people I could have voted for.
Right, exactly. But no.
This is a failure of education, I'm going to say, because when you are homeschooled and you do not have a good social studies, civics curriculum, you're not going to understand the workings of that. You're going to have less respect for it because you just don't know enough about it to recognize, oh, they did think about that.
Right. That's true. That's a good point.
I'm not voting for Hunter Biden. I'm voting for Joe.
You do plan on voting for Joe Biden again? I mean, economy-wise, the border. You live in Texas, bro. You live in Texas.
Oh, don't get me started on the border, man. I've got some opinions on that too.
You don't think Trump is better for a secure, or are you saying you're okay? I don't mean to put words in your mouth. You're okay with the way the border is being handled?
I'll never forget. This was right after the 2016 election. I go down to Houston to hang out with a buddy of mine from college.
Down south. Yeah.
So he's both of his parents were illegal. He's legal because he was born in the United States. He's telling me, like, Josh, it's terrifying. My mom can't go get groceries. She's afraid she'll get deported. And all this time they're talking about how he's like, yeah, since Trump's been in office, it's been a bit more revamped. People are telling me to go back to my country. And he's like, and I'm legal. So watching two illegal immigrants take, this gringo in and how hospitable they were, first of all, changed my perspective, because I think you get the straw man painting of like, illegals are bad and they're all gonna kill us and sell us drugs. And it's this loving family who sought refuge from like the cartel.
Many people that want a secure border.
Kind of like how, states like Kentucky want to judge Colorado for doing a program that provided free long-term birth control to teens and young adults. Not even like just abortion stat, but our teenage pregnancy statistic went down by like 60%.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It was a massive, massive success.
Yeah.
And other states were clutching their pearls and like, oh my God, no, we can't have that here, because then these girls are just going to go around being sluts and having sex. And it's like,
Oh my God.
not how that works, but
That's not
okay.
how, yeah. Just use
And
common sense here.
right. But if you aren't like exposed to it on a regular basis, if you don't experience it yourself, there is a level of like opportunity to learn that just doesn't exist elsewhere. Now, I say opportunity to learn because not everybody who lives in these areas with these specific issues is going to be open to the learning opportunity. And so they're going to continue, barreling forward with the bigoted, xenophobic, whatever stuff that goes on.
And I think it also shows the difference, the view of the problem. Paul views the problem as, oh, the border isn't secure, and so there's going to be more violence, and Josh is saying like, no, the problem is that people can't get here legally if they put in all the paperwork and take all the time and go through all of these processes to get in legally. It takes forever and it costs a ton of money. And that's what we need to improve. I think Paul's still stuck on the people who weren't born here are inherently more dangerous and evil.
Exactly.
I think that reformation is being sought a bit more on the Democratic side. The right way, to your point, Morgan, can take up to like years, decades. And if a family's trying to seek refuge from a cartel that's trying to kill them, they don't have years. So again, this is like nuance. Like, is there a correct answer? Should we just open the border up, or should we just completely, neither?
You like the way that Biden is handling the border, which is obviously more empathetic, and let them in than these governors saying, give them $10,000, the ones that came in illegally. Because of the empathy aspect, you're more okay with that than Trump, who might cause a little more divisiveness, and illegal immigrants are feeling kind of nervous of deportation, and they're getting blah blah, but he's at least doing more to secure our border. You'd fall more in line with Biden's approach?
I think so long as there's a vetting process still. I don't even know if it's Biden, but I would lean more towards the Democratic approach. I live in Texas. I think it's kind of comical when someone in Minnesota has an opinion on it. Like, a lot of my friends are Hispanic, a lot of friends in college, hearing like their stories, meeting people that are like actually illegal immigrants and watching how they treat me, the things that they say. One of my mission trips back in college was going to an orphanage of refugees, kids that majority of the time the cartel sent over with drugs and said, take these drugs or we're going to kill your parents. And just even talking with them, like with a translator, and like hearing their stories, I'm like, dude, I have a difficult time really cracking down and vilifying the illegal immigrants that want to come here just for safety, for like a better life. And I think the Democratic side kind of embodies that a bit better.
What about all of the violence that's been going on
at school shootings with white people?
Yes. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Right?
He is the level of snarky that like I would be if I was having a conversation with someone like Paul and Morgan.
I don't even realize what you're saying right now after I just told you all of this.
Yes.
What about the violence? And it also shows, I mean, just the two of them standing there, like you just see Paul with this like non-expression while he's talking. Like he doesn't even really process what he's saying.
Yeah.
It's like this guy is just a normal dude. And so there's that stark contrast, because then Paul's over here going, well, that's not in my talking point list. So let me think about it for a second. What did they say on Fox News that I was I can't remember. And then, what about the violence? It's like,
yeah, the just lack of anything outside of what aboutism. I know that everybody to some extent is going to have in certain arguments but what about moment, and that's not always a logical fallacy. Sometimes it is an extremely relevant point to the question that you're being asked or the statement that was made. But for Paul and Morgan, that's literally all they have.
Yeah.
They truly do not understand anything other than being a talking head and everyone just agreeing with them.
Remember we were talking how Paul always talks about the secondary issues?
Yes.
Like, we're starting to infringe on primary issues here. And so I don't think Paul really knows how to handle it.
Yeah, because he doesn't want to start a fight about,
Right.
directly to their face, I don't think you're a Christian.
Right.
Because then
No,
he
no,
would
no.
actually have to defend himself, and there's no what
Yeah.
about around that. He's just doing what
Yeah.
he's doing.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I would want him I would say, okay, now defend Trump.
Right?
Tell me what policies you're looking forward to him implementing if he gets elected. Like, no, they can't.
Correct. And what's sad is Paul's response would be anti-woke bills.
Yes. Yeah.
It almost reminds me of the abusive dynamic method of gray rocking, where you just try to be as uninteresting as possible, so that way the person that you're talking to, that you don't really want to talk to or divulge too much information to, you just, appear as boring and uninteresting as possible, because Paul's just over here like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
what about this, what about this, what about this? Oh, I'm out of options, so haha.
Next clip. Let's go.
So ridiculous.
The woman was just recently in Georgia. She
Yeah.
was on a run and she was murdered by an illegal immigrant. I agree. There has to be a better solution for these people who are fleeing a terrible place. Innocent children who don't
Yeah.
who need a safe place. Absolutely. We've got to figure that out. Also, we've got to figure out how to keep the violent criminals who are crossing freely, being handed $10,000 and then going off and committing murders. There has to be a solution to that too. And so a lot of people say, close the borders and bring these other, people in who are coming in safely or legally, we'll help them. We want to offer refuge for the refugees.
It's very interesting to me, kind of the discussion around an illegal immigrant kills someone. Like we said, we should have shut down the borders. A school shooting happens where a white kid shoots the school, which is just as horrible. And then the conversation, well, hey, it's a sin problem. It's not a gun. It's not a violence problem. So I think to kind of go there, I think there is a violence problem just in general in the United States. I don't know if sitting here and shutting down the borders, hey, now people aren't getting killed. Now it's great.
Yeah.
The vast majority of immigrants coming from south border are not killing people. They're just trying to make an honest living, which is great for the economy.
Exactly.
So good. And no response. No,
Correct.
Just blank face, just staring. I mean, I agree with all of that. You're going to find violence in America no matter what. And it is inhumane to just assume people outside of America are coming in to be violent.
Exactly.
That is a Trump narrative.
For sure. What kills me is it's obvious that people who make those arguments about immigrants being unusually violent is that they obviously don't understand statistics, because you will tell them, well, we arrest illegal immigrants at such a lower rate than native and otherwwise legal persons in the United States. And they're like, well, we don't even know how many illegal immigrants there are because they're undocumented. And so we don't know if that's the actual statistic. And it's like, my brother in Christ, if there are other illegals we don't know about, that would make it a smaller percentage than it already is.
Yes.
And one could take it the other way around and claim that, oh, well, you're overinflating the numbers of migrants in order to make it a lower percentage. But that doesn't jive with their messaging that, like, so many million entered the country and everything. And it's like your numbers are grossly inflated, and you somehow think that's going to help your point.
And Morgan, that was misinformation that she was saying about illegal immigrants getting handed $10,000 and then going and committing crimes. Like, that is just a complete lie. Like, every word in that line is bullshit.
The $10,000 amount that she is getting is from a proposed New York program. And so it's only available in one state, and $10,000 is the maximum benefit you can receive, but they don't give it to you all at once.
Right.
They give you X number of dollars per month with a maximum of $10,000.
Yeah. And these are the benefits that they were just talking about, like people who get in legally, who need help, that Morgan was talking about. Yeah, we need to help them. That's who you're talking about here.
Correct.
Like, what are you not getting?
Exactly. If you're undocumented, there may be other programs for you, but they just don't read past the headline.
Right.
And it shows.
Yeah.
I push back so far kind of on the modesty discussion, because I feel like that's just, we've heard it so much. You got a Southern Baptist preacher in the pulpit who, like, if we're being honest.
I mean, that just happened. That one that was like telling women that they're responsible for their own assault.
God, dude, that was nuts. I bet.
And that was, yeah.
So just hearing, these pastors hop in the pulpit and feel bad for your wife. Like, I wonder if you've ever made your wife, like, have an orgasm, honestly. I wonder, these pastors talk about sex in a very transactional manner of like
domineering manner.
Yeah, it exists, for me, for the man, and then modesty for the women. The women just need to be, covered up in this and that, and you need to never, and it just gets really old really quick, and you see kind of like the pastor's heart behind it. It's like, you're not really talking like biblical facts. Like, you're just talking like your opinion of how a woman should dress.
Well, the biblical version of modesty actually has to do more with like
wealth, right?
Yeah. So when you really break down the like Greek and Hebrew version, it's less about what there's like an American version of like what we have deemed as modest and not modest.
That's kind of
historically in American English, you would make a modest living. You would have a modest house. And so these things had nothing to do with what you were wearing. It was everything about how you carried yourself in the world.
Right. Showing off your wealth. It is a very nicely dressed up version of victim blaming.
Oh, yeah.
It is let's teach them this from the beginning when they're young, so that if they get assaulted, then we can blame them for the way that they were dressed because they should have known better.
Exactly. My thankfully only adult assault, I happened to be wearing this cute little dress. It was, certainly not church length, and heels, not like stilettos or anything like that, just some cute like block heels.
Yeah.
And I had a tire explode on the highway after the club had closed, and I was driving back to my hotel, and somebody, this guy pulled over and, was going to take me, because this was before I had a cell phone. So he was going to drive me to a gas station so I could call for a tow truck and stuff. And he did that. And we get my car to a tire shop so I can, head over there first thing in the morning and get a new tire. And he takes me back to my hotel, and I'm like, thanks so much. Have a good night. Close the door, start walking into the hotel. And then I notice he's following me. So I'm just gradually trying to pick up steam to like get into my hotel room as fast as I can without actually running. And I was not fast enough. And he pushed his way into my hotel room And yeah, so I felt so much shame after that for
I hate
like
that.
a fucking decade because
Yeah.
I was like, it was my fault. If I had been wearing
Oh
normal clothes, that wouldn't
no.
have happened. And that
That's
is,
heartbreaking.
yeah, but that is such a common experience.
Yeah.
And it's because of this modesty
This
talk
message.
and well, because it's not just blaming the woman for wearing the wrong thing or whatever. It is also absolving the man of any
Right.
responsibility to, control himself.
Yeah. Like when has that ever even been in question when someone is on trial for sexual assault? Does the judge ask what the person was wearing? No.
Fortunately, they do sometimes.
Do they?
Yeah. Depends on your
Oh
state.
my God.
Yeah.
I don't understand how that it makes a difference for anything. Like a woman can be walking along the road naked and it would still be wrong to do that.
Oh, 100%. But think back to the Brock Turner trial. And the judge was saying that, he didn't want to give him a prison sentence because it would destroy the rest of his life. And he was such a promising young man.
Oh my God.
There have been other recent situations that made the news where a judge basically was like, yeah, but the guy is such a nice guy, or they're so smart, or they're such a good athlete. We can't make them, experience serious repercussions for crimes that they have committed. No, we got to protect these boys. But there's no thought of
Makes me
protection for
sick.
the girls that were
No.
in that
No.
situation. So it's maddening how often that shit not only affects, what do they call that? Court of opinion, but it also is seen in the court of law.
Yeah. I mean, damn, Josh and Sydney are trying to take down the patriarchy right now.
Right?
Like these are some really good points because Paul and Morgan have been promoting this message. Like that's part of what they got popular for.
Yep.
Or that whatever they started their
Infamous.
platform on. Infamous. Yeah, exactly. Like that's their message that is this harmful is still out there and they don't have any shame about it at all and they're not going to change.
Correct. Wild, but unfortunately true.
Why you probably that one video of me poking fun because I feel like now it's not just pastors. It's like I feel like any guy with a microphone now. Me and a buddy were eating like dinner with a couple of friends, and there was a guy that took like 30 minutes to explain why he didn't date a girl because he found like a bikini pic on her Insta. Like he's scrolling and he finally finds it. He's like kind of shaming her for it. And we're like, you don't have to date her, man. Just it's been 30 minutes. Like, we don't...
I personally am like, I'm not gonna do that because I want to be set apart from what the world is doing.
Yada yada yada.
Is better and higher, whatever than them. I want to honor the Lord in all areas of my life, and that goes along with my body, and my body is my husband's, and so I'm not gonna like show it off to the world because I don't need the world to see my body.
Ma'am, that is a lie. That little red slip dress that didn't even go halfway down her thigh that they did as like ad promo pics or whatever. All of her living in spandex for the last couple of years. I used to scribble out her butt, but she has stopped doing that. And then she had this really cute maternity dress on that was super form-fitting, but it was showing off every single curve.
Yeah.
And like, ma'am,
she's got some kind of twisted up version of that in her head. Like she thinks she's doing an amazing job.
Yeah, exactly.
We see kind of Christianity almost adhere to the societal norm, even way before Jesus, of like, we need to kind of shame women a bit, look down on women a bit more control on women. Like, look at this adulterous woman we need to stone. Forget the guy that participated in the sex. Boys will be boys. When I hear just a multitude of guys just talking, we're not the first one. Say, Paul, you put it like so eloquently. Like, let's say no one has ever said it like you did in that podcast. Modern day theologian type, like people.
He does imagine himself that way on almost a weekly basis.
Yes.
He loves being told that he is that thing, even though this is a phony setup where he's basically saying, if you did these things,
right,
not
in this
that you
imaginary
did these
scenario.
things.
Right.
People are hearing this, like, wow, he has such a way with words. You know? Even then, it's the fact that we, as men, have like dug ourselves such a hole that even if you put it so eloquently that it's perfectly said, it's still the fact that it's coming from, here's another modesty take from another guy.
My wondering in the recesses of my mind is there any secular music artist that she could have posted herself dancing to that you would have been like, yeah, maybe for this Christian influencer, a significant Christian figure that goes and she teaches at conferences.
Sadie Robertson from the Duck Dynasty crew, she posted a video with some friends dancing to the first Beyonce country song that came out. It was This Ain't Texas or something like that. And it was very like chaste dancing, but it was Beyonce. And so conservatives kind of had a fit that, you know, this white Christian nationalist influencer, speaker, writer dancing to a black woman's song and it's not gospel.
Right. Didn't she issue an apology, which was like basically, I was told that I need to issue this?
Correct. Yes.
That's pretty much what she said.
It was. And she deleted the original video.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I want to see if there's a world when you, specifically Josh, would say like, no. Sadie Robertson and her sisters or friends post a video. I don't think you do. You might post a video of them dancing in a very non-sensual way to WAP.
Have to be like, all right, Sadie, you just picked the worst
Worst
song.
case.
I would have to relent to that.
And like, this is it. They have to go to the most extreme thing they can think of to find any kind of agreement. So on real situations, they absolutely do not disagree, but let's build this most extreme straw man I can think of. There we finally have some
like
agreement.
How pagan can you be in this moment?
Well,
let's just test the limit.
So on Quora, it's a question and answer website, and so you'll post on there some question you have, and the public, including experts, can reply to you. Well, there is a trend, I guess, of people posting like, atheists, imagine this, what would you do? And there are things like, imagine a Christian baby is falling from the top of the skyscraper and you're on the ground. Would you catch him and save him but break your arms from the impact or let him fall?
What the fuck?
Correct. There's like 12 versions of this skyscraper thing. Atheists, imagine you're going skydiving with a Christian baby. Suddenly the baby tells you he won't open his parachute until you renounce atheism and accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior. What would you do? And I'm like, God. I would wonder why the baby is talking to me.
Yeah, I would have a long conversation with this baby. Like, why am I in this scenario? And why would it matter? Like, if I just told you that I was going to do that, what difference would it make?
Exactly. Some of the comments are things like, I would put down the joint because what the hell?
Yes.
I lie, he opens his parachute and lands safely. I laugh and tell him, what the fuck was that missionary Baptist bullshit, bro?
That is amazing. Yes.
Oh my God.
So good. It's crazy that these things that Paul says you would think are just some kind of satire. Like, he's gotta be making fun of people who really believe this way. But then it's not. It's his actual, as far as we know.
Yeah, exactly.
Actual belief.
I don't understand how so many people can be stuck in Paul's mindset. People who are more educated, people who have had more life experience. How are you still this bad at constructing arguments and participating in conversations in good faith. And what the hell, dude? Like, I remember trying to talk to my family as an adult after, getting out into the world and researching stuff that I had not been allowed to research as a kid, having conversations with people that I never had the opportunity to be exposed to, and broadening my horizons. And we would try to have conversations, and it would just end in everyone being so mad. And it was exhausting. So we ended up with this short list of things that we absolutely do not talk about, which is great in theory. Doesn't always work in practice though, because not everybody always respects that no-no list.
Yeah. That would be very frustrating, especially if you already have the list and then somebody brings it up. It's like, really? It's that important to you to have this conversation?
Yeah.
You're fully aware of the fact that nobody wants to have this conversation, and you're still going to do it? I don't understand what is to be gained from that.
Yeah. What is the end goal here?
Talked about kind of like convictions and people treating it like it's a commandment, right? Like, oh, my personal convictions, not everything is beneficial, but everything is permissible.
Love that verse.
And I feel like that addresses a lot of like gray areas. And so for some people, again, we all have like different upbringings, right? So like if you see, let's say, and again, I'm speculating on your upbringing, you see someone like drinking, they're over 21, whatever, like, oh, that's worldly. Whereas for me, the line, if you will, of like where I'm set apart is like if I'm hanging out with, some friends or whatever, people who maybe aren't Christians, well, we're not getting drunk.
Mm-hmm.
We know the limit of alcohol. And I think the first thing of really worldliness is kind of like knowing where your convictions are with the Lord and where your discernment is. I think it's like what Bryce said. It's like it's a very powerful thing to believe that you're the one that has the exact line of convictions and things figured out.
It's 100%
and you're
correct.
so correct of like, this is where the line is drawn, and like, essentially you're compromising your walk with Christ if you're anything but this. It's very powerful to believe that. It doesn't always make it true.
Exactly.
And it's most certainly probably not true that you have it figured out and everyone else is super wrong.
This is just the whole crux of the Fundy issue. They truly do believe that they have the secret sauce. They have decoded the message accurately, and everybody else is wrong, and that's why they are condemned to hell. There's no talking to anybody about that, because it doesn't matter what you say, because you're just spewing lies from the devil.
Right?
It's obvious from Dave and now this guy that like these guys have really studied things, and they can have an intelligent, cohesive conversation about a particular nitpicky thing in the language or whatnot. Paul literally cannot go past just the plain common recent English interpretation. He never goes deeper than that unless someone like Allie Beth Stuckey has a video about it, and then he'll adopt it. But what's funny is times in the past where he's done that, he couldn't even remember how to like explain it or describe it himself, so he had to play her video on his phone and hold his phone up near the microphone. It was so badly done. I was like, dude, realize that OBS will allow you to switch to another scene and have you plus the whatever video up on there. Like,
Yeah.
This is not that hard. And it makes me wonder on a technical aspect, do they use something like OBS, or do they use like just the native YouTube live stream thing? Because I mean, OBS connects to YouTube to do lives.
Okay.
So like it goes up the same way, it saves the same way. There's no difference other than OBS is another program that you have to learn how to use.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if like they just use all of these native apps because they're not tech savvy enough to pick up other better third-party
Yeah.
apps.
I feel like that the way that they do things is kind of half-ass
Oh yeah.
lately. They just aren't willing to put any effort into making any changes to whatever it is that they're using. Like
They're like the companies that had a custom software built like 12 years ago and they still insist on using it.
right.
And it's like, yes, I'm aware that it worked well in the past, but
Right.
we are no longer in the past.
Yeah, exactly. Shouldn't be that difficult.
It's because growing up, super Southern Baptist, but also kind of my parents being strong believers and things of that nature, and small town, people are watching. I get kind of the feeling of like, how could they do that? And then how could they, be a Christian? How could they, partake in this? I think just from my end, it's just kind of like to the people watching that are like, this guy's so worldly and questioning my salvation. It's like people have different perspectives and different life situations from you that mold who they are, and even more so kind of that reflects in their walk with Christ. The problem we run into is oftentimes, and this is kind of where the legalism comes in, it's like it's almost never presented like, hey guys, like this is just a personal conviction of mine.
Mm-hmm.
It's always
this is Bible.
if you are a Christian,
100%.
you do this.
Yeah.
But also we were talking about it too, like what gets views, what gets
Oh, now we're getting into that.
Christian,
Not Paul getting called out for being clickbait.
Yeah, exactly. That was just a very obvious call out to Paul right there.
Oh, absolutely.
Thumbnail the more black and white.
you're going to hell
Yeah.
if you do that. And it's
It's
just like,
outrageous how much people want to shout that for real, though.
It's crazy.
It does feel good to tell someone that they're wrong and that you're doing better in your own life.
feels great.
Damn. Can you believe that's how it ended?
Yeah, that's how it ended.
It feels really good to tell someone else that they're wrong and that you're doing better in your life.
Correct. So
Wow.
after that was said, then Paul asked them, like, so do you have anything to advertise? Where can people find you online? And then another beg for Patreon patrons.
Mhm.
And I was
Yes.
just like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yes.
You intentionally left that in for why?
Right.
It's not the flex that you think it is.
No, it's not.
I can think of like maybe a couple of occasions where I told somebody off and it felt really good, but for kind of a shitty reason. But
Mhm.
it's certainly not like a character trait of mine. It's a, momentary lapse of judgment or just a knee-jerk emotional response to something.
Reaction.
It's not something I'm intentionally doing. I know that comes off a lot as like, oh, look at me, I'm such a better person than they are. And that's not
I don't think so.
really the intention. I may still do those things occasionally, but at least it's not something that I am doing intentionally. And typically, if I catch myself thinking it, I, as Paul would say, I rebuke it.
Right, exactly. That's a very Christian word.
Yes, it is. All right, so that is the latest published, at least 24 hours with Paul and Morgan. What is funny is they just finished recording with Tim from the podcast and Instagram page, New Evangelicals. They
Yes.
are extremely progressive, like to the
Yes.
point that he thinks that Adam and Eve, Noah's Ark, stuff like that, were not actual people. Like, that's not literally what happened. It is a mythological story intended to convey a moral message. He is incredibly supportive of the LGBTQ community, and that's stuff that he said in a Instagram story that he really pushed Paul and Morgan on. Why do you got to be shitty to gay people? So I am very excited to see that. And yes, Paul, I am a little freaky weasel, and I will not be watching it on YouTube.
Same.
I'm interested in watching these people dunk on you, and I don't think you deserve a view for that. So,
thank you for leading us to all these awesome people. We appreciate it.
Right. Now, I will say, New Evangelicals was new to me, but Church Chad is something that's been popping up in my Instagram algorithm for like the last year. I honestly thought it was an evangelical satire account.
Yeah.
I had no idea he was actually honestly just a progressive Christian. So that was the plot twist for me.
Yeah,
I appreciate getting to learn more about these people, but I have a feeling like I could have picked this stuff up from interviews that they've done with other people. I'm just, my algorithm is ruined enough that it sends me Kelly Havens and Nadia Van Dyke onto my main feed on Instagram. I was like, why?
I have a lot of Bethany Beal content now, and like a Bethany Beal adjacent.
Yes.
It's funny to see your algorithm transform and...
Correct. I feel like your Instagram search page with all the like suggested stuff, I feel like that is more accurate analysis of your brain. First way to catch a hyperfixation is to notice your suggested page is literally nothing but cosplay and fan arts and
yeah. Nice. It picks it real quick and helps you out, right?
It does. It really does. All right, well, that is us for this week. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, so that way you can be sure to get our future videos. We will be looking into a couple of different, I'm thinking probably James Dobson book to look at next, or I have a discipleship course book that I found called Freedom in Christ. So that may be the next reading project. And then we'll keep checking out the 24 hours series as long as it stays interesting.
Yes.
Socials are down in the description box below. Follow me all over the place to get extra content. Link to join the Discord is also in the description box. Join us and continue that conversation. We are restarting our book club, so get in on the ground floor of that. With all that said, thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful weekend.
Bye. See you soon.